The next one is a question about cannabis in the workplace. So is mandatory random drug testing at the workplace an infringement of your charter rights?
Mandatory random drug testing is very legally fraught. So the charter doesn't apply to most workplaces because it focuses on government. But there are a bunch of laws that do come in to restrict when employers can put in place completely random drug testing schemes. And by that I mean, there's no prior incident. There's nothing to suggest that somebody might be intoxicated or might have had a drug problem. It's just completely random for all your employees. So the courts and arbitrators have been pretty restrictive in terms of when Canadian employers can actually go ahead and do this type of drug testing. But in practice, if you don't work in a unionized environment, your employer can fire you, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a good reason. They can just fire you without cause and give you, termination and pay off your vacation and severance and stuff like that. But people who are in non-unionized environments have found that they're subject to these policies, and as a practical matter, they don't have much recourse. So I feel like if they don't comply with providing the sample, then their employer will just let them go and pay them severance, and that'll be the end of it. But if you're in a unionized environment, definitely the unions have taken this to arbitration again and again and again. And there are also, it's not just labor and employment law, there are also significant human rights aspects to random drug testing policies. Any action by an employer that may reveal a apparent or actual disability is going to engage human rights law. And we know that cannabis in particular has a human rights aspect with medical cannabis, medical marijuana. So there are going to be people who use this substance because of a disability. And those workers have additional protections. And so any employer that's thinking about doing this should get legal advice about what the scope of their responsibilities are and what is a narrowly crafted policy.
And further, what if testing shows past use of cannabis but no impairment is clear? Can an employer legally punish you or fire you?
Yeah, so this is also an interesting question. And there definitely could be situations where tests show that you have some THC in your saliva, in your blood, but you're not impaired, because those two things are not linked in the same way that alcohol breathalyzers are linked to impairment. If your employer doesn't have a policy preventing you from using cannabis in your off hours, it's hard for me to imagine how a positive test, if you're not impaired, if you're fit for your job, how a positive test would result in justifiable discipline for an employee. But what we are seeing is employers that are putting in place really broad policies restricting their workers from using cannabis. So we have police services that are saying you can't have used cannabis 28 days before you come on active duty. We have airlines that are saying people in these particular positions can't ever use cannabis on or off duty. So in those cases, if that policy is upheld as a policy that's legal and complies with their collective agreement, and I think we will see some litigation from unions. I would be surprised if the unions they've already objected to this, and I'd be surprised if they don't challenge it in some way. But if those policies are valid and you are found to be in violation of your policy at your workplace, then there could be consequences related to your job.